Hi, I'm Chris from Chase Realty, and today I kind of wanted to talk to you about one of the hot button topics is how do you compare brokerages? And the truth is, it's very, very difficult because there are some amazing brokerages out there. So it's really a challenge to decide which brokerage is right for you. And it's even more difficult sometimes to make a change to a different brokerage. The idea of spending so much time with a brokerage and then that brokerage not actually serving your needs can sometimes lead to a lot of emotional distress from us because we've put so much energy into it and so much drive and so much determination that we oftentimes get lost in the idea of that time spent. Now that can be called, that's what we call a sunk time fallacy. Those hours that we've spent, those days, those weeks, those months, those years, they're gone. And it's unfortunate, but they're gone. We want the time back. We would love to be younger. Most of us, if not all of us, would love to have our youth back. But we can't get that stuff back. And just because we've put all of the time in doesn't necessarily mean that we need to continue to put more time in. See, the only thing we can actually control moving forward in our lives is the future decisions we make. And the casinos really get us because if you've ever sat behind a one-armed bandit, otherwise known as a slot machine, you put your quarters in, you pull the handle, you put your quarters in, you pull the handle, you put the quarters in, you pull the handle, and it dings a little bit. It gives you a little bit of your money back. And then you put your quarters in, you pull the handle, you put your quarters in, you pull the handle, and it dings a little bit. And it keeps you playing the game. But slowly but surely, your amount of money kind of tips away. And what happens with gambling is we tend to chase the money we've lost. We tend to continue to play because it has to pay out. It must pay out sometime down the road. And the truth is it often doesn't. That's why the casinos win. Not everybody who plays the casino will actually make some money. So the casinos know this. But they also know that we as human beings are creatures of habit, and we will chase the losses that we've incurred. So we stay at that machine, pulling the handle in hopes that we'll hit the big one to actually give us back the money that we've spent. But the reality is that we can't. The money that we've already spent is already spent. The only thing we actually have control about is the money that we spend in the future. Now, the same goes for brokerages and any business choice you make, any of your service providers that you're choosing. You may have put a lot of hours and a lot of energy working with a particular service provider, but not really getting the reward that you're supposed to be getting out of it. And those service providers may not actually be providing the services that you need in order to actually propel you into the future. So it's really difficult because we really need to sit back and we need to evaluate, and we have to go under the microscope and look at the services that we're being offered and determine whether the value that we're expecting is the value we're actually getting. See, there's another thing that we do in as a human being, and that's we have risk avoidance and reward avoidance. And we can see this by, again, a little bit of gambling. If somebody were to flip a coin and you had $100 in front of you and the other person had $100 in front of you, and if that coin came up heads, you owe them your $100. And if the coin came up tails, they owe you their $100. Now, $100 may be a little small for some people to do this experiment with, so we'll use $10,000. If we flip the coin and if it comes up heads, you give me $10,000. If it comes up tails, I give you $10,000. A lot of people wouldn't take that bet for the risk of losing $10,000. See, the risk is 50-50. You lose $10,000 or you gain $10,000. Now, if I were to increase the amount on my side of the table that I would lose, and you would maintain the amount you would lose on your side, at some point the threshold becomes an obvious yes. For instance, if I said, okay, if it comes up heads, you lose your $10,000, but if it comes up tails, I give you $20,000. Now, some people wouldn't take that deal yet because it's still $10,000 is a lot of money to risk on a 50-50. Some people need a 5-to-1 return in order to actually take the deal, take the bet. You flip the coin. If it comes up heads, I get your 10,000. If it comes up tails, you would get 50,000. So we do this experiment a little bit just to identify our personal risk reward kind of mechanism, our meter, our thermostat, to identify whether or not we're willing to risk a lot of our resources in the hopes of gaining new pleasures. Now, human beings will often avoid pleasure to reduce the amount of risk of pain. Right? We'll actually not be pleasured. We will not go after that $50,000 because we don't want to lose what we've already gained. Because what we've gained is already here. So it's a challenge. And the same concept is what we use when we talk about brokerages. We have to understand whether or not we're getting the value that we're actually paying for, and whether or not that value is far exceeding what we're paying for, because it shouldn't be a 1-to-1, right? You shouldn't be paying, $30,000 to your brokerage and getting $30,000 worth of results. That's not really what the brokerage's role is for you. The brokerage's role is to help propel you into the future. So if you're receiving mediocre results from your brokerage, if you're getting 1 or 2 leads from your brokerage and that's covering the cost of the brokerage, for me, that's not enough. For me, that's not the right setup for me, right? Because I want my brokerage to provide me more value than what I'm paying for. I want every service provider that I use to actually be worth more than what I pay them. Otherwise, I can do it myself. It's the same when we hire an employee. I wouldn't hire an employee for $30,000 a year if they only brought in $30,000 worth of income, because that's barely covering the cost. In fact, it's probably costing me a lot because I'm having to do training and monitoring and a lot of management of that employee. When people hire new employees, they're often looking for a return on investment of 2, 3, or 4 times the cost of that employee in order to keep that employee and grow their businesses. So if your employee, which is your brokerage, is not providing you with multiples of what you're paying them, then I would question whether or not they're actually worth their salt. See, your brokerage really shouldn't be your number one biggest expense. And that's the thing that I compare when I look at my brokerages. I look at whether or not I'm getting the value that I'm paying for plus what I expect as a return multiple. It's really difficult to have these conversations, especially when we're in the middle of an emotional time. Maybe we're stressing out about money or sales being down, or buyers not having a good time finding houses. So we're spending a ton of time driving around showing houses for little to no reward, which is why it's really important that we constantly review the service providers that we're choosing. Because at the end of the day, if we're not reviewing them, then we can't determine whether they're actually valuable. Now, they may turn out to be valuable after that return or review, and that's wonderful. And you know what? Like I say, there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful brokerages out there. There are some brokerages that maybe don't measure up. I don't know which one you're at, but I do know that Chase Realty, in my mind, measures up in the plus category. See, Chase Realty doesn't take any commissions. So you sell a house, you keep the entire commission. Chase Realty only takes $500 a month or $6,000 a year. That's the most you pay for Chase Realty. Chase Realty is also really dedicated to growing its realtors' businesses and to treat you like a business owner and us as a service provider to you, not as an employer to you. Now, of course, we are there to make sure that you are compliant with RICO standards and the REBA standards. We're there to make sure that you're living up to the bylaws of the board that you're a member of. But at the same time, your brokerage should be supplying you with services that far and exceed just the administration stuff. It's food for thought anyway. And it's really important that we do this, right? It's really important that we review our service providers at all times. And that doesn't go just for brokerages. That also goes for photographers and stagers and lawyers and our home inspectors and plumbers and all of the service providers that you utilize on a day-to-day business with your a day-to-day within your business. If you have any questions or would like to talk more about how to compare brokerages or how your brokerage stacks up against Chase Realty, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Now, listen, Chase Realty is not going to be for everyone, and we understand that, and we appreciate that because we're looking for a certain type of agent. We're looking for an agent that really wants to propel their career forward, who really wants to take their career and build a business from there. If that sounds like you and you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation. In the meantime, though, I would recommend that you review all of your service providers to see if they're stacking up. I hope you have a great day and do take care of yourself. Bye for now.